Hello. This presentation will go over the UCTAG program, the requirements, and how to apply for TAG. So to go over what we'll talk about in this presentation, we'll start with an overview of the program, an overview of the requirements, how to find those requirements, and how to meet those requirements with Solano courses. And then finally, we'll talk about the process to apply for TAG. So a brief overview of what the TAG program is. UCTAG stands for UC Transfer Admission Guarantee. And so students who meet the requirements for TAG for their chosen major and their chosen school are guaranteed admission to that particular school. You're only allowed to participate in the TAG program for one school. And so there's 6 campuses that currently participate. So you could apply for a TAG for any one of these schools: UC Davis, UC Merced, UC Irvine, UC Santa Cruz, UC Riverside, and UC Santa Barbara. So the requirements are going to differ from campus to campus, and they can consist of general GPA requirements, course requirements, and GPAs within those course requirements. So each campus is going to be a little bit different in how they do things. At each of the campuses, not every major may be eligible for TAG. So one thing you want to check is that your major is actually eligible. And typically you have to complete your English and math or be in progress at the time of the application in order to apply for a TAG. So who's eligible? These are the basic eligibility requirements for TAG. One is that you must be a California community college student. You have to have completed 30 units at the time of application, and the last college you attend before transfer. So for instance, if you're transferring for fall, this would be in the spring semester. It must be a California community college. So there are some people who also aren't eligible for TAG. So the first is students who have already earned a bachelor's degree or a graduate or professional degree. Many UCs don't accept these students regardless. And so if you are a second bachelor's student, I would work closely with the school to see if they'll accept you into a given program. Students who are previously enrolled at UC and you're trying to return to the same campus. So students who are trying to return to the same campus will go through a process called readmission, and you should contact either the registrar's office or your academic advisor at that campus in order to learn how to go through the readmission process. And the last group that isn't eligible are students who are concurrently enrolled in high school at the time of application. You have to have spent time at the community college and be a transfer student in order to be eligible for the TAG program. So if you're in high school right now and you're looking to get into UC right after your high school graduation, you're actually going to apply as a freshman, regardless of how many UC transferable units or community college units in general you've earned. So since TAG requirements are a little different everywhere, how do you find those requirements? One great resource is something called the TAG matrix, and this is easily searchable on Google. I would just Google UC TAG matrix. It's also on the admission website for University of California. And what this does, it's a chart that breaks down the differences between each campus. And even in this portion here, you can see, when tags are accepted, whether a major is guaranteed, and then the website and contact information for each campus. And so if you're looking kind of broadly at each UC, this is a really great resource to use. One thing you want to look for is if your major is eligible for TAG. So most, if not all, of the campuses have majors that are excluded from the TAG program. Often these are majors like business or nursing, things that get a lot of applicants to where they can't accommodate guarantees within that major. You also want to look for the deadlines for completing English and math. You may have to complete one or more of those courses before you apply for TAG, so something you want to look for sure. And then you want to look at GPA requirements. So there may be an overall GPA requirement for TAG. There might be different GPAs based on the college that the major is housed in. And then there might be GPAs within the major coursework you need to complete. And so you want to look at all of those things together and know which GPA you need in order to qualify for TAG. You also want to pay attention to those course requirements. And so each major at UC is going to have major preparation that you need to complete prior to transfer. And some of those classes may be mandatory for you to take in order to be eligible for TAG. And we'll talk a little bit later about how to find those requirements, but just know that select majors will need you to complete course requirements. And then the tag matrix, again, is a really good starting point, but I would always recommend visiting the campus website. And so they have the links in the tag matrix, or you can just Google the campus plus tag. So for instance, Google UC Davis tag, and it should bring up the tag page for Davis within that search. And so these are just things that you want to look for as you're early in the tag process to make sure that you're going to have all of your requirements completed. So to give some examples, this is an example of major eligibility. And so you can see at UC Santa Barbara, it talks about the tag not being available for majors in the College of Engineering or the College of Creative Studies. So if you're interested in those majors as a transfer student, it would not be appropriate for you to fill out a tag. Some students think they could tag into one major and then get into the major of their choice at UC. This is probably not possible, especially if the major you're looking to get into is really competitive. You always want to apply to UC in the major that you actually desire to be in. Now, some examples of English and math deadlines. So if we're looking at UC Davis, you'll see that you need a minimum of 2 English courses. And so your second English course needs to be in progress at the time of your tag application. And then that also holds true for your math concepts and quantitative reasoning course. So these both need to be in progress when you apply. And that's different than a campus like UC Irvine, where you see that your math course needs to be completed with a C or better by the end of summer. And so it's a little different from campus to campus. And then same with your first English course has to be completed by summer. And so just little differences you need to note as you're looking for campuses and seeing where you qualify for. If we're looking at GPA requirements, as I've mentioned already, some have a GPA requirement within the college. Some campuses might have an overall GPA. And so at UC Davis, you can see that the GPAs are different within the colleges. And so, for instance, 3.2 for the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences and 3.5 for all majors in the College of Engineering. And so it differs a little bit depending on what your major is. Now at UC Irvine, it's just a 3.4 in all of your UC transferable coursework. And so this might differ between classes in your major, but for the general requirements, it's 3.4 across the board. And then like we've mentioned as well, the course requirements might be different. So at UC Davis, they have a section on the selective major requirements, and you'll find this on any of the campus websites for TAG. But these are the selective majors at UC Davis. And so all of these majors will have coursework that you have to complete in order to be eligible for TAG. So as an example from Davis, this is what psychology requires in order to be eligible for the TAG agreement. You have to complete the following coursework, and you also have to maintain a 2.9 within these classes. And so what that means, if we go back, the psychology major is in with this College of Letters and Science. You can see that you have to have a 3.2 GPA. So it's a 3.2 overall, and then just within these courses, you have to maintain at least a 2.9. And so that's what that means here is this is a major GPA versus the overall GPA. And so all of these courses are needed in order to be eligible for the tag. So how can you meet these requirements with Solano courses? Our courses that are numbered between 1 and 49 are transferable to UC, which sometimes there's courses that fall outside of those areas. So if you're unsure about a course, always check the course catalog for Solano, because we list there whether the courses are transferable to UC or not. If there are specific courses that you need to qualify for TAG, you're going to use assist.org in order to find those courses that correspond at Solano. Even if there's courses in Assist that aren't required for the TAG agreement, you want to complete as many of the courses on the major agreement as possible, because that will set you up for success after you transfer. If you need help using Assist, we have a video on the YouTube called Using Assist.org, and then it also helps you use that major agreement section. So this is how you're going to find requirements for TAG in assist.org. So you can see here, again, on this psychology agreement, you need either Biological Science 2A from Davis or Biological Science 10 in order to fulfill the requirement. So you may be thinking, well, what are those classes? So if we go to assist.org, this is an instance where you can utilize the department agreement in order to find these classes. And so you go into assist.org, you select Solano Community College, and then you select UC Davis, and it will bring up this department agreement. And so you want to pull the most recent year. You scroll down to Biological Sciences, because we know from this page that that is the course heading that they're looking for. And once you click on that, it will show you which courses that correspond at Solano. So Biological Sciences 2A corresponds to Bio 2 at Solano, and Biological Sciences 10 corresponds to Bio 15 at Solano. So some things to note: if you're going to apply for multiple UCs, you want to make sure you're choosing the course that will actually work for multiple UCs. So for instance, if you have the choice between Bio 2 and Bio 15, but you're also trying to complete the requirements for another UC, you can see that in this major, Biology 15 is not one of the options. And so you would want to choose Biology 2 to make sure that you're filling the requirements for both majors. So just something to note, because you may be trying to qualify for multiple majors at multiple UCs. So you still want to pay attention to those requirements, even if the TAG agreement gives you multiple options. So finally, you're going to go through the application process. This will happen once you have earned at least 30 units, and you'll be ready to complete 60 units and all of your UC transfer requirements by the end of the subsequent semester. So for fall, you would need to complete those requirements by the end of spring, and for a spring or winter, you would need to complete those requirements by the end of summer. So to do this, you need to create your UC TAP account. If you visit uctap.universityofcalifornia.edu, this will take you to the page where you can create your account. This account is going to allow you to add coursework for each semester of community college coursework that you've taken, which will be imported into your TAG application and can also be imported into the general application. So it's really good if you're starting early to go semester by semester and enter which courses that you've taken and your grades for each semester. It's just going to save you time when you go to apply later. And then you just want to remember that you add all coursework. So for any community colleges that you've attended, if you've attended out of state, if you've attended any four-year universities, all of the coursework that you've ever taken at any college should be in this system. So during the application period for TAG, which will vary based on whether you're applying for a fall or a winter, spring, quarter, or semester, you're going to apply through this UC TAP account. And one thing to note is that UC Davis and UC Merced will pre-review their tag applications. And so before you submit your general application to UC, you'll want to hear their response first. So this just applies to students that are looking at UC Davis and UC Merced. And if you have questions about that, please follow up with the counselor or with the transfer center so we can talk about that a little bit more. So this is what things will look like as you go into your UCTAG account. You'll see here that the following semesters have been entered into the UCTAG account, and they include the grades that have been for each course. You can see which classes are UC transferable. In this example, all of these are UC transferable. As a note, you do need to enter your non-transferable coursework into this system as well. And the nice thing about this system is once you've entered all your coursework, it does show which courses have satisfied the eligibility requirements for UC. So that's the 7-course pattern. Just as a reminder, with your 2 English classes, your 1 math class, and then 4 classes from either arts and humanities, social and behavioral science, or physical and biological sciences. And so it's going to show you all the coursework that you've taken to fill those requirements, which is just a handy tool to have. You also need to enter any exams that you've taken, such as AP or IB scores. In this example, the student took US history with a 4 score. And what it does at the bottom is it gives you a summary of how many units that you'll earn for the course, whether it's semester units or quarter units. And then it also tells you if these exams, again, satisfy any of those eligibility courses that I just mentioned. So finally, you're going to, once you're done entering every course that you've taken at any college in the system, you're going to go ahead and apply for your tag. At the side menu, it will give you options to do this. You will select which term that you plan to transfer and which campus you would like to apply to. Again, you can only apply to tag for 1 campus. So it will give you, once you go to submit your tag, it will just give you an overview of what you're planning on applying for, what major. It'll remind you of the filing period. It'll ask you if you're following one of these transfer pathways. If you have questions about what those are, please contact the transfer center and we can explain to you what that means. And then any additional comments regarding your tag. So if you have things that you want to explain about your application, perhaps something like why you're going to be a part-time student, or maybe not attending one of the semesters. So just any comments that you have regarding your application in that field. Then there will be a checklist. I used UC Davis for this example because many of our students do apply to UC Davis for tag. So I wanted to give an example that was going to be relevant to many of our students. And so you can see there's a checklist here, and it's just going to make sure that you've read all of the requirements for a tag on the UC Davis website and just have you ensure that you've completed everything. Finally, again, it will just have you review everything that you've submitted so far, and then you can go to submit the tag application. So it's as simple as that. Most of the work you're going to do is just filling out your course history and making sure all of your coursework has been entered. There are some pitfalls I want to remind you to avoid through this process. The first is to make sure that you've entered your information accurately, including the course titles, the proper amount of units, all as it appears on your unofficial transcript. And so I always just recommend going through at least twice and looking at it, and then maybe even having a second pair of eyes on things. I know in the transfer center, I often take a look at things with students and things get missed really easily. And so I think a second pair of eyes is always a great idea. Again, don't forget to include your AP or IB scores, other test scores in your account. Include any non-transferable courses in your course history. These and courses from places that aren't community colleges in California will have to be entered manually. They won't show up when you search for them. So that's just something to note. Non-transferable courses are not going to factor into your UC GPA. Typically, those are going to be courses numbered above 49 at Solano. And so you want to make sure that those aren't inflating your GPA. So if you've earned, let's say, all A's in non-transferable courses that you've taken, that could possibly be taking your GPA higher than it might be just in your UC transferable courses. So you want to make sure that you're still meeting the GPA requirement without including those courses. You also want to be careful and make sure that you still have the proper amount of units without those courses. So those are two things I've seen before that can be challenging for students when we notice them kind of at the last minute. You must apply on the general UC application in addition to the tag application. And this is really important because you can get accepted for your tag, but if you don't fill out that general application, you will not be accepted to UC. And so you have to complete both steps. In your UC TAP account, there is a link to the general application. And so just make sure that you're filling out that application as well. Another really important thing, you must apply for the same major on both the tag application and the general application. Your tag is void if you apply for a different major on your general application. So make sure that those things match. Now the deadlines for tag. Most schools are only open for fall tags, and the deadlines for those are September 1st through September 30th. Campuses that have been open for winter quarter or spring semester in the past have been UC Merced and UC Riverside. That can change from year to year, and so you just want to check in with the school and see what's available that year. Those deadlines are from May 1st to May 31st. And then the general application, because remember that you have to apply for both, the deadline is November 30th for fall, and then July 31st for spring. And again, this is only select campuses. So just make sure that you're applying within the deadlines. Finally, if you have any questions, please contact the Transfer Center at transfer@solano.edu. We're also on Instagram and Twitter if you want updates about events, deadlines, any reminders that we have about transfer. This can be a good resource for you. And then also look at our website to view our event information, to look at steps to transfer and general resources. And then we do have a monthly newsletter as well. So any way that we can assist you, just let us know, send us an email, and we can make sure to get you to the right person. Thank you.